Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. When Laura asked me to present, I'm always happy to do so for a couple of reasons. One is because we really do have a really positive story of how we got to where we are today using VPO. And what I always find is I love to share the things that I've learned, because I've learned so much from listening to webinars like this from other customers at VPO, and what they do really gives me good ideas of things that also my team can implement, which helps us be more efficient. And so I'm hoping you get one or two good things out of this session. So this is our portfolio site. So really, this is the high level site that we use that we have all of our team information on. And we also have our list of all projects that reside on this page. The rest of the projects themselves are subsites of the portfolio page, and everything, the data, we have a lot of data from all the different project sites that roll up here to the portfolio level. You'll see here we have the different time clocks here because we do work around the globe, and sometimes it's hard to remember what time it is and where all of our colleagues are working. And many of our projects span from people that are working in California to people that are working in Europe or Asia, all at the same time on these projects.
It's such a simple tool, like just to even have makes such a difference to know like what the actual time. And sometimes we have clients that do weather, to see what the weather conditions are at those locations too.
Well, and this really kind of shows our team members too that we're, it's more inclusive. We're not just that we're not just California centric, right. That we do really care about what time it is around the globe. So let me run you through the menu on the left-hand side to show you all the different modules that we have within this site. We actually have a project management playbook, and this is a tool that we use probably for a lot of people that are new to the team, just so that they understand the 6 steps that we actually follow on any construction project that we do. And if you click into it, then it just gives us a list of what's the objective of this phase, what are we delivering, what resources do we use, and who really gets involved in this phase. And we've got it lined out the same way for all 6 phases of the project. Back to that. So the next thing that we have in here is our benchmarking list. And this is the list that we actually started developing right in the beginning of when we started setting up VPO. And really what it is, it's a list of every project that we've ever run through VPO. And it's broken up by, by location and region, because we do a lot of reporting it varies by region what the spend is for each of our projects. And what we do is we break it down by our material categories that we use for each project. So professional fees, construction cost, technology, furniture. So we have these specific categories that we use for each project. So what it does for me and our team is a lot of things. It tells us, how much are we spending on each material category, depending on each region. And it also gives us by project type how we're spending our dollars. So a refresh may look different than new construction, of course, than a relocation. And so this particular benchmarking spreadsheet we use in the dashboards that you'll see as we get to that too. But this is just one example of how you can take data from projects that we're running within the site, and you can aggregate all of those costs into one list and utilize that to manage future projects. The other thing we have on the site is cash flow projections. And this is part of those dashboards that we are using in Power BI. This takes a minute to load here, but and we can break this down. We've got historical information that goes back to 2021, and we have forward-looking data that we can share with our treasury team. Down here, we have a graph that shows by month how much capital we do forecast to spend. And the next enhancement we're making to this is that our treasury team would like to see how well we're forecasting. So we're going to actually be showing them what our forecast was and what the actuals were, to see how close we are getting to projecting the right amount of cash that we're going to be spending. We also have a list in here that we use a lot with our members of procurement and legal. This just is a way that we track every contract that we need in order to start a project. This is the list that we use for that. So when my team members have a new project, a new contract that they need to have work done by procurement, we'll put it in this list, and we will make sure we'll follow it just to see how long it's taking to get those contracts, because that's really important for us to be able to start projects. And this is our project list. We actually track this by what we call an IO number, and I think probably many other people on the call have similar numbers that they use to accumulate cost and for each particular project. And this is where a lot of data comes from for our dashboards. We put in here the square footage amount, how much was approved for the project, and we also track the progress of the project using this particular list. You can get to the project site using this list as well. We have our PM dashboards. And this has really evolved over the years. And this is a tool that I use for our leadership when we do what we call a monthly around the world leadership update. And it's a really quick way to show them, not to get too much in the weeds, but to give them a really high overview. And all of this data that you see on this dashboard actually just comes from that project list that I just showed you. So, let's see what, and when you have the live dashboard like this, you could actually, if like one of the team members or leaders said, hey, what's really going on in a particular project? Let's say if we wanted to say one of the big ones that we have going right now, we have we're doing a ground up build. So if I just click on this list over here, click on the name of the project, it'll tell me how many seats are being added, what's our budget for that project. And it really tells us here, this is by region of where we're working. And this is a breakdown here by material category of where we're actually spending our money on this particular project, and a nice map of where it is. So this is a really big tool that we use a lot. We also have, in terms of dashboards, I can also look at, we were talking earlier about team performance. I can actually pull down this dashboard by my team member, see what projects they're working on, and what's the dollar value, how many seats are being added by their particular projects. And then over here, you can see this project status. You can see what phase they are in each of their respective projects.
It's just awesome, Justina.
Yeah, it's good for me because then I can keep track of what everybody's doing. And then the other thing here that I've also done, again, using the data I already have, every year when I have to submit my annual report to leadership about what my team did for the previous year, I actually just use the data I have in VPO to create a report. So this is just being pulled in from, again, that PMO list. And it makes it quick to be able to share with leadership. The other thing that we've done with the dashboards is I've created this list of, you can see by the map here where all we've made investments. And of course, the bigger the circle, the bigger the investments we've made. And this is data that I've been collecting since 2018, since we started working with Laura and team. I could actually, if I wanted to, here on this dashboard, if I wanted to say, hey, what's all the work, what have we done since 2018 in any particular city? I'm trying to pull up one where it might be a lot. So in Lehigh, where we've done a couple of ground up buildings, you can see here the projects then that we've done and how much money we've spent in that particular site since we've been working on this project. So I love this tool. I can also take a look at, since 2018, how we've been spending the money. Is it, I kind of like to look and see, well, what are we spending on construction cost versus professional fees versus IT spend? This is a combination of every project we've ever done around the world since 2018, and how that pie how the costs get allocated. No surprise, construction costs are the biggest piece of the pie. But the other thing that I can do, again, is I can look and say by region what that looks like, because it's definitely different in Asia than it is in North America. Okay. The other thing that we can do here is I can look at the cost per square foot by region of projects as well. And I can break that down because we track it this way. I can break it down by project type. So if I said, hey, what are we spending on new construction? North America, certainly this was the last time we did a ground up build. It's not the one we're finishing now. And versus India, right? So we can see what those costs look like. It's always more expensive to build in North America than it is India. So anyway, just wanted to give you an idea of what you can do with the data that you do collect using VPO. Let's see. Let's take that back to going back to our portfolio level. Let me take you to the project intake form. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So what this form does, again, each of these forms that we've set up, they have data. So if we're collecting data in these forms, we can use it later to develop those dashboards. So in this one, this is an example of a project we're intaking now. We're thinking about taking on a new space in Atlanta. And so what this general info tab shows us is just the information about what address we're looking at, how big it might be, how many seats we might put there, what the lease term would be. We've got a contact tab for people that, for the information on who's working on this intake particularly. And then we develop a list of goals. And we get that in here. And the reason we do that is because we try to make sure that once the goals that we set in this intake get carried throughout the project. And so this is a reference document that we'll use for the team when we do a project kickoff. And then it's also a reference we'll use throughout the life of the project. So if anybody forgets what those goals were, we do have them really well documented. As we're going through the process of selecting a site, we'll do various budget iterations, and we can, in this CapEx list, we can add as many different scenarios as we want to play out in this. And then we also have an action item list here. So as we're going through the process and there's different people of the team that have an action, we can document that here. And then we have a running list of notes, which is my favorite piece of this, because I just cut and paste anything, emails, any document, any conversations during the process. And then we have a list of attachments. Usually here, we'll put test fits, we'll put plans that we have for the building that we're looking at, again, as a good reference for everybody for future use. We talked a lot about the benchmarking list, Laura. And then what I wanted to show you next is really, this is the biggest project we've ever run in VPO. This is a project that's, as you saw earlier, might have caught that. It's well over $700 million project. It's ground up construction, 1.3 million square foot building. And we're doing this all in VPO. And this is really the earliest, a lot of this is the earlier version of that when we just started out, and we have enhanced the site, but it's probably one of our oldest sites. The one thing that we like to do on every project is if we have a construction camera, we like to have a link to that. And so I'll kind of give you a quick view of what this building looks like that we're actually building utilizing the software. There it is.
That's so cool.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. So it's 18 stories. And we're going to be moving in October. So it's very, yeah, great project. Let's see.
When did it start, Justina? When did you start the North Tower project? And it'd be ending in October. Wow.
Yeah, in 2017, and it will be done in 2022 with the building. And then we have a bridge that we'll be constructing in the following year. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The one thing I was just going to show everybody here is on the purchasing side, just how this is our list of purchase orders for the project. And a project like this, we've got well over 1,000 purchase orders, and it's amazing that we can. The thing I just love, that's what I'm trying to. The scale of what can be managed in this is just incredible to me, right? That because when we first started this project, everybody was really concerned we were going to break it. Because the volume of information that's in here, and we were talking about the change orders in here. I was looking here last night just to see how many change orders we have processed using VPO, and there's 500 change orders on this project
Wow.
in this list. So, and it's just, again, it's just incredible how we've been able to customize the list so that we can manage it on this large scale. Any questions yet, Laura, from anyone?
I believe there are actually. So let's see. How much time or money do you spend on having an Adobe employee serve as your VPO administrator?
That's a good question. So really, VPO, the VPO team administers the site for us. So that saves us a lot of time. We actually have the ability, whenever we have a new project, we actually just submit a request to VPO. It's probably 3 or 4 fields we have to fill out, and then they set up the site for us. So that part of it, and the same thing with the security. So whenever we want to invite someone to join the project, we have a project directory, and this is the project directory itself. When we add someone to this project directory, we can say, do we want to invite them to VPO or not? And if we say yes, then the VPO team gets a notification, and they will do all the setup to have a new internal or external partner join the site.
And
So
that's a follow-up question for you, Justina, is how did you get, user adoption, and how did you get everybody trained and up and running on using VPO?
That's a great question, and that's taken a while. I would say that was probably a little bit of a hurdle, only because we weren't used to enforcing something like this. And what I learned over the years from other companies and teams similar to ours is that we, in all of our contracts, whether it is architectural or our general contracting contracts, we do have a clause in our contracts that says that this is the primary source of for the project, of truth for the project, and that this is where all of the documentation for the project will reside. So that was one thing that we learned instantly, is that we really had to start doing that. And in the very beginning of each project, when we bring external folks or internal folks that haven't worked with us before, we do a quick overview of SharePoint and what the expectation is for using it. Also, the VPO team in the very beginning, they made videos for us of each of the modules that we were using. And that was really helpful, because then we were able to at least do a self-serve for people and say, hey, go watch these videos. But I think really the most impactful was actually just walking people through it. And then the other thing that I've learned to help get adoption is, as I'm running a project meeting, like an OAC meeting or design meeting, I'm actually pulling up SharePoint, and as we're reviewing documents, I'm going to the location where they are on SharePoint, just to continually orient people on how to find information on the site. And the good thing is, because we have standardized, that when we have the architects that we use the same, the internal teams that we use that are the same, when we have repeat consultants that work with us, they know how now, after going through one project with us, they know how to find things on the site and how they're supposed to be posting the information on there.
And that there is a follow-up question to security, and how do you have multiple participants in the same project? How do you control who sees what?
Well, if you look on our directory list, you'll see a column here that says security group right here. And you'll see the different security members that we even have on this project. Is we have engineers, consultants, external PMs, architect. So what we did in the very beginning with Laura and team is we defined by each of these types of groups that would be using the platform, what should they be able to see? And so now when we ask VPO to set someone up. So if it's an engineer, we just say, okay, we'll use a security group for engineers, because we know we want them to see just this particular part of SharePoint, right? If we have an external PM or even an internal PM to Adobe, they can see everything in the site. And that's been really helpful, because, as you know, there's a lot of financial data on here, and there's a lot of contracting data on here, and we don't want other consultants to be able to see that information. And we don't want other consultants to see, we have an internal documents folder also that's here. And that is really just this internal documents folder is just for the PM team to see, and not for the architects, not for the general contractors. This really just is an internal document folder for those managing the project.
And one last question, how many users do you have across all the projects, or how many different companies or do you have using it?
Well, a good example on North Towers, we probably have well over 200, and because it's such a big project. I mean, well over 200 external team members, partners using it. It's not uncommon in most projects to have up to, 50 to 100 people, depending on the size of the project. And what we have found is that because we're using VPO to administer it, they really help us to get people into the site, because that would take a little time, I think, if our team did it, because we're not as well versed on how to make sure, especially external team members can get on the site. But because the VPO team does that for us, it's pretty seamless.
Okay, there's one more question.
Okay.
As a large company, did you have difficult time getting your internal IT security to approve the use of VPO? What was the collaboration like?
Well, once we found the right person, I think that was the key. It was really finding the person inside Adobe who his role was to help teams set up SharePoint sites. And he really became that catalyst, and he still is today, for anything new or that we want to do within the site that maybe hasn't been standard for Adobe. He's really good at being an advocate for us. So finding that right person in IT whose role that is, and there's going to be someone at your company that's their role, is really important. And really, once he understood the vision of what we were trying to do, he really ran with it and helped us get it set up pretty quickly.
I think that's where the question's coming from. Like, did you have a hard time getting buy-in from your IT to buy VPO and to start using it?
Well, Adobe had already adopted SharePoint,
right?
So we didn't have to do that piece of it. But we were really a first group that wanted to use an outside company like VPO to help us set it up and to administer it for us. And I don't think we had a difficult time, because Laura and team are very professional. They knew exactly what needed to be done. They had to go through a security screening as we do for all suppliers at Adobe, especially handling data that's Adobe related data. So they did have to go through a screening process. And so our compliance team would make sure that they would be a trusted partner. And once all that happened, I think from that point, it's been fairly easy to make changes and to have them continue to administer it for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Laura?
Okay, yes, there is one more. Has there ever been a time when there was a dispute or when you were able to refer back to VPO records to resolve it?
Oh, yeah. Good example, we did a project in Seattle, and we had a problem with the flooring that was specified by the architect. And so again, going back to the fact that we have all the documents, the RFIs, the submittals, we have all the contract documents, everything in one place that we could easily reference and that our legal counsel can reference. It made it so much easier. If we had been in that same situation where we had to figure out who had what document on their hard drive, that would have taken a lot longer to get resolved. I find myself constantly referring back to other projects, maybe even projects we did. We're working on some projects now in New York, and we did a project in a similar building, 3 years ago. So we've got that information to refer back to, and it's really nice to have that available to us to do that.
Yeah. And I was hoping that you'd show the timeline too on your homepage for the project, because I think that's pretty spectacular as far as having everybody on as your audience. You've got different stakeholders. Everybody wants to know what's happening. So I like the timeline that you have even on this. I looked at this particular project for it to, just being able to share information with people right there.
Are you talking about this project timeline, Laura? This one's a
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
there's a lot of colors, a lot going on here, but yes, this is the project timeline. This one we've split up into 3 because really we're running 3 separate projects in one. This really shows the core and shell timeline. This is the interiors construction timeline, and this is our bridge timeline. And yeah, it's this is again going back to the one source of truth. We really want this needs to be updated so that every team member, if they're trying to figure out what we're doing at what period of time, this is the one source of truth for everybody to see. And we do have this on every project. And we had talked about the status report. That timeline feeds our status report. This is a beautiful picture of our new auditorium that will be inside this building. But the status report really has really a narrative that the PM can write about what's going on at that given time with the project. We do have over on this side our countdown clock that for every project that says when we're going to deliver, how many days away we are, and you can get into that full project timeline from here. Progress photos, again, this feeds from the photos on the site, and then this is an overview of the budget. And again, from a leadership perspective of what we're spending. And then this is that milestones list. This actually feeds from the timeline. This is a way more detailed key milestone list than we would have for most projects, but because it is a ground up build, a lot of this information is important to the leadership of our company. So that's why it's such a long list. But this is that status report that just pulls data from other parts of the SharePoint site. And we don't have to really do a lot of work when we're sending these out on a monthly basis. Anything else? The only other thing I wanted to show, Laura, was this new drawing log, which I love. Maybe it's the colors, maybe it's just the organization, but so maybe I could explain to the group what we use this for. So this, every time we have a document issuance from an architect or any of our consultants, they actually document it by starting with this issuance and summary, and it's basically a form they fill out that really explains what type of issuance this is, and then at the same time they attach all of the drawing files for that issuance. So if it's a DD set that they're dropping here, 50% DD, they can drop it in, say what division it is, what phase of the project, add some comments. And it can also be routed for signature, which I love about this, because a lot of projects we do want teams to sign off on the drawings. And then once the information is documented in here, those drawings that are from the issuance log actually roll up into this drawings list, and it's by phase. So in this situation, this is a project we're just starting up right now. We've gone through the SD phase, and it'll show the list with a thumbnail of the different issuances we've had during SD phase for architecture. So this is in this respect, the reason I really love it is because it definitely shows when we've hit what phase it is, what percentage complete it is, and the most recent issuance is on the top. So anyone looking for drawings can find the most recent issuance for every discipline that we have, either for whether it's SD phase or when we get into construction set of drawings. This one they're just starting that, so there's really not a lot of detail here. But in the DD phase, you can start to see the architectural drawings and the electrical drawings in here. So it's a lot more organized way to find the drawings for a project.
And once we started working with the drawings being issued, then taking this to some other customers and looking at different applications of use of this, we were able to, there's so many other things that can be issued through the project. It has the same kind of workflow need where you want the issuance to be identified and the change of documents in the construction phase, correspondence, non-compliance notices. Like we have one client who wants like 5 different issuance modules. Yeah. So good job, Justina and team, coming up with the request.
A lot of iterations on it, but this is why I love VPO and Laura's team so much, is that if we think about something or they think about something that might be good for us, they're really patient to iterate with us and go through different versions until we get to the point where we're comfortable with it. But we just, I mean, we couldn't say enough about this, especially I just feel like we've just grown up a little bit. Instead of just throwing things in a big folder, we actually can see what really is the most recent issuance and why was it issued, right? A lot of times we don't know why it was issued, but this really supplies us with a lot more narrative on the drawings that are dumped into the site.
Definitely. Okay, there's one other question too. So I would encourage anybody who has any more questions. We're getting to the top of the hour for Justina. So, but this question, so feel free to submit questions. This question is from a customer I know. So, you know, with Adobe using SAP as the backbone, did VPO create the data interface into and out of SAP for all the reporting data? Any insight into how much SAP data is interfaced? So I can say, yes, we did the integration for the project. We worked with the SAP team, certainly, and Justina was a conduit to that. But then, you know, the information that comes out, Justina really guided us as to what the information was needed. And then how much data would you say is coming through? It's a nightly download of information from SAP for all the projects that are capital projects. I don't even know how to address the actual volume of data, but it's a lot.
The volume, there's a lot of data that comes through every night, because what the data we're getting is when a PO is issued, if there's an invoice issued against a PO, if a PO gets changed. So anytime there's any transaction against a PO, that data is submitted, it comes through with the feed every night and then gets consumed on the project level in VPO. I think what we just had to figure out in the beginning is SAP, there's a gazillion fields that we could, but we kind of narrowed it down to what is it we needed to see. And then you guys helped us map that, you know, those fields that we wanted with what SAP could provide. And you mapped that and did all the back end work on the VPO side. The SAP team delivered to us the fields that you wanted to consume in there. And I think we did a couple iterations and tests. And then once we got that running properly, then it just kind of runs by itself every night. So it updates, I think, at 10 o'clock every night. And it's sometimes, well, you can see, like, especially on a large project, it could be a large volume of data that comes through, but it's very seamless, and we don't really babysit it too much. It's just on autopilot right now, which is fabulous. And if, you know, just to give just a, you know, I know we're at time, but just to give a quick look at what that summary of all of that looks like. I was just going to do this really quick. This is one of our largest projects. So you can see all this data that's rolling. This is just a summary by material category, because it's how we track our cost of all the POs and how they roll up into these categories. And so it's just a quick look that we can see how much we've spent and what our total obligations are remaining. So this is just an a summary page from all the POs that get issued into VPO.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But and we were getting, you know, even data that wasn't pertinent to your project. So we had to filter out the data set that we were getting to make sure that we only listen for your project's information, to pull that information into, so that we're not, you necessarily consuming everything.
Yes, exactly. And it's a time saver, because if we had people that were manually doing this every day, it would take a lot more time. So it's again, big change, game changer for us.